Hello and welcome to the NAS versus DAS, the best solution for your storage workflow live webinar. I'm Eliana Figueroa, the marketing manager at Drobo, and your future resource for any marketing information and related questions. Joining us for the webinar is Brett Best, Drobo's Director of Sales. He has been with Drobo for many years and has a wealth of knowledge on storage solutions for your various needs. Also today, we have Rod Harrison, VP of Engineering for StoreCentric. He has many years of experience in storage and is one of the original developers of Drobo. Barring any unforeseen technical difficulties, a recorded version of this webinar, we will also send you an email with a link so you can view it later on. We love to hear from you, so please submit your questions during the webinar. And at the end of the webinar, we will have a question and answer session with Rod and Brett. Please stay tuned after the Q&A as we will announce the winner of the Drobo 8D. It will be a random selection from all the attendees still present. The agenda for this webinar is a brief introduction of Drobo, the company and its mission, as well as the technology, followed by what is a direct attached storage solution and what is a network attached storage solution. Usages, followed by the newest Drobo product, the Drobo 8D, which is also the prize for today. Lastly, we'll go over the promotions for Storage Madness during the month of March. Then we will open the floor to question and answers. And finally, the winner of the 8D. For those of you just joining us, welcome to the NAS versus DAS, the best solution for your storage workflow. With us is Brett Best, Director of Sales for Drobo.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for carving out a little bit of time this morning to talk about Drobo and how it might fit for you. Just wanted to really start with what Drobo is all about. And you'll hear this over and over from everybody in the company, but we are about simplicity and preserving that simplicity, not only in our products, making them easy to use, customer centric, but the pre-sales availability, getting to questions, and as also post-sale support. So just making everything about interacting with Drobo just as simple and easy as possible. So as you'll see in a little bit, we'll kind of go through some of our technology that we use for Drobo, so you can really see exactly how this comes to be on the product side. A lot of people ask me, hey, you know, what Drobo do I need? And I always ask them right back, well, what are you using it for? There are so many different flavors to Drobo, and how many different types of scenarios that you might be using a different model of Drobo. So it really kind of depends on how you want to use it. You think of storage as just kind of a one-trick pony, but it really is pretty diverse. We market a lot to our creative professionals, our photographers, video professionals, video production. They love our products for editing. We're also great in small, medium business spaces, typically businesses that are around 50 people or less. It's great for file sharing and just a collaboration of files and storage and all in one place. And as you can see, there's just so many different ways that Drobo can be utilized. It really is something for everyone. So this is what I'm talking about as far as our Drobo technology and what makes us special, what makes us different. We are a storage array, and there are other storage options out there, but Drobo does things a little bit differently. We use our own coined technology called Beyond RAID. And if you're familiar with what RAID is, if you're not, don't worry about it. You'll have a little bit better idea after this webinar. But there are some rules that you have to know about RAID, which is the technology used in a storage device that has multiple bays like Drobo, that you have to follow. Drobo takes those rules and says, you know what? Those rules are dumb. Let's get rid of them. Let's make this a lot easier to use. So first and foremost, to hot swap drives to increase capacity, that is something that people love, because if you have a drive that maybe is a smaller capacity and you want to increase your storage space, just pop it out, put in a new one, and you're off and running. You don't have to power anything down. You don't have to do anything else. And that's also the same way that you would replace a drive that's gone bad as well inside the Drobo. Another way that makes us a little bit different is the Drobo will accept different capacity drives, the same array. So you can mix and match different sizes, different speeds, different manufacturers. It does not matter. If you have a certain preference of drives, we're pretty agnostic when it comes to drives. So it's a great way of saving some money. I've never met anybody that didn't like saving money, because you don't have to get an array like a Drobo and fill it up completely. You can always start with just whatever you need now. And as you start filling it up, if you feel like you need a little more storage, go out, get a larger drive, put it in the Drobo, or replace a smaller one with a larger one. And so the money is spread out over time a little bit, only as you need. So great benefit there. It also is very easy to use as far as physically putting the drives in. They just slide right in the box. There's some other pieces out there that might require little tools and little trays and tiny little screwdrivers and tiny little screws. We don't have to worry about any of that. It's just a little tab that you pull and the drive pops out, slide the new drive right in. So it's very easy. We also use the traffic light analogy. This is actually on the back of our cover, so you can also see that if you can read a traffic light, you can know what's going on inside the Drobo at all times. Green is everything's good. The Drobo is happy, all the drives are healthy. If a drive starts running out of space, or if you start kind of running some capacity issues, one of the drive bays turn yellow. If you're really full, then it'll be solid red. So it means stop using the Drobo, increase your storage space. But it also lets you know if there is an issue with one of those drives with a blinking red light. Drobo is constantly doing health checks on all of the drives. And if it recognizes that one drive is about to start going bad, it'll let you know so that you can replace that. Very simple, just takes minutes. And it's a really cool innovation product. This is our obligatory, here's what we have and here's what our competitors don't slide. See all the green check marks on the Drobo side and all the red X's on our competitors. Obviously, we like to have things that they don't. So you can see there's a few options that we do carry. This is kind of what comes down to the whole point of today's webinar of NAS versus a DAS. And what is a DAS? Well, DAS we call direct attached storage. So just an acronym there. This is our whole product family, but that first section there, those first 3 Drobos fit into that DAS category. So there's the 5C, 5D3, and the 8D, which Rod is going to be talking about in just a few minutes. And those are meant for just single user, single client, plug right into your computer, use it like an external drive, but obviously with some drive redundancy as well. That second little blue box there, those are our NAS products, network attached storage. These are the ones that are going to be plugged into a network switch or router. You can access it with multiple computers, different operating systems, do some file sharing back and forth, goes over the network. And then of course we do have our 8-bay iSCSI SAN on the far right there, which we're not going to talk too much about today, but just so you can kind of see, like I said, a flavor for everybody. There's lots of options. And just right there is our 8D with some of the features. But to go into a little bit more depth in that, Rod will be taking you through.
Thank you, Brett. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time today. I know everyone's busy, and we really do appreciate you taking time out of your day to come listen to us. So first of all, what is a DAS? What does that mean? Well, DAS, as it says there, is direct attached storage. And really what that means is it's one storage device connected by one cable to one computer. So for Drobo today, those are Thunderbolt 3 devices and USB devices, and you just literally click them directly to the computer. So they look just like an external hard disk that you might already have. The Drobo will look to your computer like one really big disk. The main benefits are that they are very fast, very high performance, because the computer is controlling the Drobo directly. So that's going to work really well if you've got high-end video workflows, high-end photo workflows, very large editing, very large raw files, or you've got very large 4K or 8K video projects to work with. Direct attached solutions are super easiest to use. We support volume expansion. So in fact, Drobo is the only direct attached, so block storage device that allows you to connect to a single computer and then just pull out a smaller disk, add in a larger disk, and just the array will just automatically grow with you without you doing anything. And today, as Brett showed on the product line card there, the 3 Drobos that we have today that fall into the direct attached category are the 5C, the 5D3, and the 8D. Then the next obvious question is, what is a NAS? So a NAS is network attached storage, and that means that device is connected usually via Ethernet somewhere out in your network, and it's not connected directly to the computer by one cable. And usually the way you connect this up is you have something like an Ethernet cable going from your computer to a switch, an Ethernet switch, and then you have another cable going from the Ethernet switch to the NAS. And you can have lots of different computers connected to the switch. you can have lots of different NAS connected to the switch as well. And the way to think about it is, if you remember those those old movies where you have a telephone operator sitting there and someone calls up and says, ask for a number, and they put in a couple of little wire and connect two people together. And then someone else calls up and they connect two people together. That's really what the switch is doing. There's no direct electrical connection, but there's really a logical connection that the switch makes extremely quickly, millions of times a second. It can connect one computer to the NAS, the computer talk to the NAS, and then the next millisecond, a different computer can talk to the same NAS. And that's a good analogy for what's really going on there. So the main benefits of for a NAS over the DAS, the first thing is the NAS is shared. So, you can have multiple Macs, multiple Windows systems, all talking at the same time to the same storage. So there's no concern about what type of file system is on there. Is it compatible? It will just work. Effectively, the NAS is a little server. So it's almost like having a little computer. In fact, it's exactly like having a little computer inside the NAS system. So that gives us some benefits. First of all, you can use the NAS without your computer being on. So for example, with the DAS, when your computer's off, the Drobo will notice that, just go to sleep. If your Mac or Windows computer goes to sleep, the Drobo will go to sleep. With the DAS, it's always on. It's not really connected because it's not connected to one computer. So if you're away and you want remote access, which is another great feature of the NAS, you can access them remotely. You don't have to have a computer on in your office or your home or your studio or wherever that Drobo NAS is. You can still access it remotely. You can create links and share files directly off that Drobo to other people. So you can, with fully end-to-end encrypted sharing, I can give a link to someone. They just click on the link in their browser, and they can pull the file directly off my Drobo onto their computer super easily and fully encrypted end to end, never decrypted at all. The other benefit is because it's a little server, you can run apps on it. So we've got it's optimized for Drobo apps. So we have about, I think today, something like 45 to 50 Drobo apps. And you've got things like Plex TV, you've got things like Resilio Sync and Elephant Drive and File Shadow. So you can share files, you can upload files to the cloud. And again, all that can happen without you having to have a computer switched on. So you can use Plex and play movies on your Apple TV or your Amazon Fire Stick or whatever, straight on your TV, multiple TVs, if that's what you need, without any computer being connected to the NAS. If you try to do that on a direct attached device, for example, you had a 5D3 connected by Thunderbolt to a Mac, you'd have to have that Mac switched on all the time. You don't have to do that with a NAS. So there's a lot of benefits to having the NAS, essentially a little standalone server. Then how do we choose? We've got some NAS devices, we've got some DAS devices. How do you make a choice between what to use? So we've put on the slide there some great questions, and this is a good way to think about it. But the real question comes down to how many computers do you want to use with it? Do you need lots of different people to access it? Do you have a business where you've got 5, 10, 15, 20 people that all need to access the same storage? Do you want to use multiple systems like Windows systems and Mac systems at the same time? And if you do, then certainly NAS is the way for you to go. Do you need to access remotely? Do you want to be able to share files with customers or friends and family? Then again, NAS is the way to go. The downside of the NAS, as I said earlier, is it isn't as fast as the direct attached devices, because the direct attached devices go over that single dedicated link. So the great thing about a NAS is you can share things from it, but you're also sharing essentially the performance from it. And it has slower links as well because it's connected via gigabit Ethernet. So you have to think when choosing between DAS and NAS, what kind of workflow do you want to use? So if you are someone who's going to be doing lots of editing of, like I said earlier, big video files or very large raw files, and you need the best possible speed and performance to the device, then you probably want to stick on the DAS side. If sharing is more important to you and you're happy enough to copy in projects in and out of the storage, but you want to be able to share them super easily, then NAS is the way to go. Capacity wise, not really much difference. Drobo has 5 bay and 8 bay DAS and NAS, so you can choose whichever model you want based on the type of usage you have for it, rather than having to worry about the capacity you need. Brett mentioned earlier the Drobo 8D. This is the newest member of the Drobo family. We launched this just at the end of last year. Bigger, better, bolder. It's the fastest Drobo we ever made. It's currently the biggest Drobo in terms of capacity, along with the 810N. It has the same capacity, and it is by far the fastest. It's really the successor to the very popular Drobo Pro. What is the 8D? Well, as we say there, it's Thunderbolt 3, so we've got all the benefits of the Thunderbolt 3 interface. It's got 8 drive bays, And it also has an accelerator bay at the back, which is a 2.5-inch accelerator bay. So this is for caching and accelerating. It's very similar to the little M-SATA bay you get on the bottom of the 5-bay Drobos. But this one is at the back, and it's its full standard 2.5-inch SSD. So you have more choice for capacities and different types of SSDs there. As we say there, it is massively faster than the old Drobo Pro, the fastest Drobo ever, and those numbers are really good performance numbers. We support very large volumes, storage pool size, so you can see that, as Brett said, you can just pop out smaller drives, pop in bigger drives, and the 8D can grow with you from a very small system of, say, if you really wanted to, 2 1 terabyte drives, right the way today up to 8 14 terabyte drives or 12 terabyte drives. So you can get a huge amount of storage capacity in a single 8D. We do have our patented data aware tiering technology in the 8D, and it has the internal power supply as well, which is great, so you don't have to worry about the power brick. Today it is Mac only. That is something we are looking at, but for right now it is Mac only. Just to talk a little bit more details, we have something in the 8D called Intelligent Volume Management. This is a feature that's only in the 8D today, and really the great thing about Intelligent Volume Management is if you don't know what it is and you don't care what it is, you don't have to worry about it. Drobo will still take care of you. So every Drobo that we have automatically creates a storage volume for you. And as you add more capacity to the Drobo, if necessary, Drobo will go out and create another storage volume for you. And 8D will do that too. So if you have no interest in knowing how that all works, and you have no special requirements, then 8D will take care of you. On the 8D, you are also able to manually create volumes. And so, for example, you might say, well, professional work, I have private work, I may have some movies, and I have some tax stuff. You could create 4 separate volumes, so you've got full, complete separation from file systems between those four volumes, and 8D will let you do that. Now, you can't do that on things like the 5D3. This is exclusive to the 8D3 today. On our business SANs that Brett talked about a little bit earlier on, if you create a volume topology that doesn't really make sense, that's okay. We assume that professional admin knows what they want, and we just leave it there. But with the intelligent volume management on the 8D, if you create a topology that's a little bit odd and really doesn't make sense, 8D will go fix it for you. And what I mean here is, let's say I've got 90 terabytes of physical storage, a few 10 terabyte volumes, and then I created a 15 terabyte volume for personal work. And I typed that, and I actually really meant 51 terabytes, but I typed in 15. 8D will notice you've got 90 terabytes of real capacity and only 60 terabytes of virtual volumes, and it will actually go create a new volume for you. So it does 2 things. First of all, it actually just goes fixes it. And second of all, it will show up a warning, and you'll get a big blue pie on the capacity pie. So you'll see that something's wrong. And so you don't end up merrily using the volume, thinking it's 50 terabytes, and then a year from now, you've got 14 terabytes of data in there, and suddenly it's full. And that's still not a big deal. You can still go create the new volume and move stuff around, but you now have to go deal with that when you've got a lot of capacity in there. Whereas when you see that big blue pie, you realize something's wrong. You'll go take a look, and it's the work of a couple of clicks to go get rid of that volume you didn't really want and create the one you did want. So it's a lot of flexibility, but if you don't want that, it will just manage it for you without you having to even worry about it. So it's best of both worlds. As you can see on the slide there, we do support disk pack migration all the way back to the Drobo S and Drobo Pro, which means you can just literally take the disks out of those old Drobos, even the Gen 3, which is a 4-bay, and the Drobo S, which was a 5-bay from around about 2009 or 2008. So more than a decade's worth of old Drobos you can go back to, and you can just pull the disks out, just put them straight in the 8D, and it will just accept it, fire it right up, and the data is just migrated across without you having to do anything. Like all Drobos, the 8D supports both single and dual hard drives redundancy, and that's really the only question you have to ask yourself when you set up a Drobo, which is, do I want to be protected against a single hard drive failure or 2 simultaneous? The next 2 points kind of go together. So we have an internal battery that allows us to journal everything, and what that really means is that as soon as your data hits the Drobo, even before it gets to the disks, it's fully protected in non-volatile storage, just backed up with the battery. So if you have a power failure, we'll take the stuff in memory, write it to an internal flash device. The mains power comes back on, it will read the content out of that internal flash device, put it back in memory, and carry on like nothing happened. And as that sub-bullet mentions there, that actually closes down something called the RAID 5 write-all. I'm not going to go into any detail on that. It's actually very complicated, but there's a really great write-up on that on Wikipedia if you're interested. And actually, that's the dirty little secret of RAID. almost every RAID system in the world suffers from the RAID 5 write hole. And you have to go up into tens, thousands of dollars plus to find systems that don't have that problem. And actually every Drobo with its battery does in fact eliminate the RAID 5 write hole. Like all Drobos, we have background data scrubbing. And what that means is we periodically go out and scrub through your data, make sure it's all good, make sure nothing's gone wrong in the meantime while it's been sitting out there, because hard drives do slowly atrophy. So if you put something on a hard drive and you don't touch it for many years, you might get the term bit rot. It may slowly fade away, and then you go back to touch it years later and there's a problem with it. Now, obviously, the RAID is intended to resolve that, and it does. So Drobo will go out, will scrub through all your data, make sure it's all good. If you find something that doesn't look good, it will go repair it from the redundancy in the RAID. Automatically in the background, it'll just self-heal itself. It will send you a little message to tell you that's happened. It will fix it and it'll be like it never happened, which is, so Drobo's kind of constantly doing that in the background. As I said, supports volume management, and all Drobos these days support separate volumes that you can designate as a backup volume. And that means you can put a size limit on it for things like Time Machine and other backup apps that will just fill up any space you give it. So if you give it the full 64 terabyte volume, it'll just keep going and going and going and never stop. So you can limit the sizes and so control those very greedy backup apps. And we do have the hot data cache, as I said, on the Drobo 8D, it's at the back. On the 5G3s, it's at the bottom. On the 5N2, it's at the bottom. And what that does is a little SSD that sits really in front of the RAID system and caches your most frequently accessed data. So that will really help for things like loading Lightroom catalogs, where you've got lots of small data that's very difficult for the hard drives to deal with, are very easy for the SSD to deal with. Those things will naturally just automatically end up in that cache. You don't have to configure it. As soon as Drobo sees you put that device in, it will just automatically know what to do with it. I just want to talk very quickly a little bit about Thunderbolt 3. So we have this on the 5G3 and the 8D. Now, you're probably quite familiar with Thunderbolt, but it has a lot of great features. One of them being Thunderbolt 3 supports, as it says there, 2 4K displays or 1 5K display. There are a few little restrictions that are related to Thunderbolt itself on that, like the 5K display can only be 60 Hertz or something like that. Those are not Drobo restrictions, but if you are going to put multiple displays on, you should check on those things. You can connect up to 6 devices together, 7 including the computer, so you can have 6 devices connected to a computer. Performance is very strong and very consistent through the chain. You can even put a USB device at the end of the chain, one single USB device if it's a Type C. So you could even put a Drobo 5C at the end. And a really cool feature is that we do provide power to the Thunderbolt chain. You can trickle charge a laptop. So it won't fast charge it. And if you actually use a laptop to you know, maybe edit video or something like that, then it will drain, but it will drain much slower than if you didn't have the power from the Thunderbolt. And if you just do things like email, a bit of web browsing, it will slowly charge. So I actually went personally about 3 or 4 months with my MacBook Pro only connected to an 8D and never connected it to the Apple Brick. And what I found was during the day, you know, emails and things like that, it would slowly deplete, slowly charge again overnight and be 100% in the morning. So that's a great added benefit of Thunderbolt 3. And with that, I will hand you back to Brett, who's going to talk to you a little bit about price and availability of the 8D and other Drobos.
Yep, thank you, Rod. Lots of information there. So talking about the 8D, we did want to highlight that we do have a little promotion going on for the 8D right now, and that is through our Drobo store, which is our online store direct from Drobo. You can see the web address there, drobostore.com. If you miss out on the sale and you still want to get a Drobo, no problem. We also have a lot of great availability online and some stores that do sell Drobo as well, like Amazon, B&H, PC Mall, all those options. And we are worldwide as well for those who may not be US based. You see we do have some options overseas as well there. Eliana has a few things that we're going to wrap up and take care of and get you on your way.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Rod. We'll start the Q&A portion of the webinar because we are getting a lot of questions. We're doing our best to answer them. And at this time, we're kind of joining a couple of them. So hopefully we'll get to your question. For Rod and Brett, whoever wants to take this one. So the first one is, can I detach my computer when it is in data protection mode from my 5C? I guess it could be a 5C or a 5D3, basically a DAS model.
Yeah, absolutely you can. So when Drobo's in data protection mode, it understands what it's doing. It's fully protected. There's no moment in there where it's exposed to data any loss. So you know, like I mentioned earlier, that we don't have the RAID 5 write hole. That's all kind of wrapped up in the same sort of question. If you want to detach your computer, that's fine. You should cleanly mount the volume. You shouldn't just pull the cables out. You should go to Mac or Windows and eject the volume. If you go to Drobo dashboard, we do have a shutdown button in there. If you just hit that, it will do a clean shutdown of the Drobo as well. So you can even shut it down while it's repairing. Now, obviously, if you shut it down, you won't continue to repair. It will pick back up when you switch it off. But yeah, you sleep your computer, turn off your computer. That's all absolutely fine.
Thank you. The next is a similar question. Can I replace a drive inside the Drobo while it's rebuilding?
So replace, generally no. If you look at the back of the front panel, the Drobo will have what we like to say, that's the whole manual, and there's just a little sticker there. It'll tell you what the front lights mean. And if the Drobo's rebuilding, then the front lights will be flashing green and orange. And green and orange means don't remove this drive. So you shouldn't remove a drive while it's in data protection mode. If you have an empty slot, you can add a drive. And under certain circumstances, you could remove a drive that you just added. So if you added a drive and something went wrong, you could pull a drive back out. But generally speaking, no. The rule is if the Drobo is in protection mode, you should let it finish before you start pulling the other drives out.
Thank you. And then the difference between data rebuilding and data protection mode?
Nothing. They're really just synonyms. It's really the same, different words to mean exactly the same thing. So you might call it rebuilding, you might call it relayout, you might call it data protection mode. But basically, what that means is a Drobo is reconstructing data from whichever disk is missing, either because it failed or you pulled it out. It's reconstructing the data that was on that disk from the remaining disks plus the redundancy information that it keeps. Writing that newly reconstructed data back to the remaining disks as well, so that eventually it'll get back to fully protected. And that's so yeah, all those terms mean just the same thing in Drobo world.
The other question is, why do I see different volume sizes on my Mac in comparison to what I really have on my Drobo? I'm assuming a direct attach.
There's a couple of things there that are related. So number one is we do create very large, what we call thin provision volumes. Say take a 5D3 out of the box, plug it into a computer. We create a 64 terabyte volume. And if you only put two 1 terabyte drives in, you still have a 64 terabyte volume. Now that's something called thin provision. And what that means is there's no storage actually allocated to that volume until you put things in it. So if I copy a 5 meg raw file in there, then I actually get 5 megabytes of blocks to fill the back of that raw file, and that's the first time those blocks are committed. So the reason we do that is then to allow you to just put in any disk and increase the capacity without having to go to the Mac and start running, or the Windows system, and start running complex commands to grow file systems, increase file systems. And generally speaking, it's quite complex. You have to be very careful about very complex things like number of inode size, and all sorts of weird things that you just don't want to get into. So we just make the Mac or the Windows system think it's got a giant volume. And then we just basically, you just kind of fill it with storage as you go. That's the general answer there. But also, if you look at a Drobo with a 64 terabyte volume, the Mac probably is going to tell you it's like 70 terabytes or something. That's because the Mac is using 1,000 megabytes to be a gigabyte and 1,000 kilobytes to be a megabyte. And the Drobo, like most computer systems, is using 1,024 kilobytes for a megabyte and 1,024 megabytes to be a gigabyte and terabyte and so on. So there's basically just a little rounding error there. Apple actually switched about 5 years ago. They used to do the same thing as the Drobo and other hard drive manufacturers, and they just made a switch. So when you buy, for example, a 10 terabyte hard drive, you're buying 10,000 gigabytes rather than 1,024 gigabytes. So it could be either of those answers that we're looking for there, but it's basically one of those two things.
Thank you. What is the biggest mSATA card I can use on a Drobo? And just a reminder, the Drobo 5As, both the 5N2, which is a NAS, and the 5D3, which is a DAS, have the accelerator bay.
The biggest you can find is fine. There's no real limit. It's a cache. Like all caches, the more you have, the better it will be, because the more we can keep in it. In general, I would guide that once you get above 128 gigabytes to maybe 256 gigabytes, your return on that investment is going to diminish. So your bang for buck is a little bit less. If you put in a 2 terabyte cache, yeah, that's way bigger and way better than a 60 gigabyte cache. But the added value for just having a cache, so putting a 60 big cache, there's a huge benefit there. And going all the way up to going from, I would say, 256 maybe up to 2 terabytes, it is a benefit, but it's a much smaller benefit than having just a cache at all. So whilst you can put in any size you like, any size you can find, I would suggest something between 120 to 250 is probably a sweet spot, in terms of bang for buck.
Thank you. And What type of adapters can we use on the Drobo 5C? And I guess we could add this one, or the Drobo 5D3. And I think their question is also, is it like Drobo cable adapter computer or Drobo adapter cable computer is what they're saying.
Let's check the 5C first. The 5C is a single USB 3 port that uses a Type-C connector. Now, USB-C is just a connector technology. So the interface is a USB, and it happens to have a Type-C connector. So you never need an adapter for that. In the box, we provide the 5C with an A to C cable. So on one end, it's got a Type-C, and the other end, it's got a Type A. The Type A is that kind of wide blade that you typically connect into your computer. If you've got a Type-C computer, like a MacBook Pro, then you just need to go buy a C to C cable, and you're good to go. One word of caution, the C to C cable that Apple provide with those computers, the big thick white one, that's just a charging cable. It will connect, but it'll only connect at USB 2 speeds, which is not what you want. If you go out and buy anywhere between $5 and $10, we'll get you a really good USB C to C cable. So that's all you need. You just need a different cable. No adapters required. On the 5D3 and the 8D, if you want to connect, the 5D3 and 8D obviously have Thunderbolt 3 on the Drobo side. Now that still uses the USB Type-C connector, but it's completely different technology. If you want to connect a 5D3 to, let's say, a Mac Pro with Thunderbolt 2 on it, then you need to go buy the Apple adapter, and only the Apple adapter will work. There are other brands out there, but they won't work. So the adapter has a Type-C plug for Thunderbolt 3 and then a Thunderbolt 2 socket. So simply put, you put the adapter wherever the Thunderbolt 3 is. So if you've got a Thunderbolt 3 Drobo and a Thunderbolt 2 host, you put the adapter in the Drobo, and then you go your ordinary Thunderbolt 2 cable from the adapter to the Mac Pro. If you've got a 5D Drobo, which is Thunderbolt 2, and say an iMac Pro, which is Thunderbolt 3, then you put the adapter in the iMac Pro, and then you'd use a standard Thunderbolt 2 cable to the Drobo. So simply put, you put the adapter, whichever end's got the Thunderbolt 3, and then you just use a Thunderbolt 2 cable to the other end.
Thank you. And then there's a question is, can I move the disks from my Drobo Pro to the 8D?
You can. We did not have that support when we first launched the 8D at the end of the year. We did have support many other migrations, but that one was missing. We did make mention of that because we knew that was an important one. But that is now available, and we launched it, I'm not quite sure when, about a month ago, something like that. Maybe a little bit less, but certainly in the last few weeks, that was being made available. So now you can, as of today, if you go out, if you fire up Drobo dashboard, make sure you're running the latest version of firmware for the Drobo. You can just move the disk straight from the Drobo Pro straight into the 8D. Now, I would add one word of caution. Before you go and do that, think about how old those discs are. I think we stopped selling the Pro in around about 2011, something like that. So if those are the original discs that you had in that Pro and they're 7 or 8 years old, the 8D is, more than 10 times faster. It's going to work those discs a lot harder. It's going to put them under a lot more stress. I wouldn't advise that. I would advise getting a new set of discs in your nice new 8D, copying the data over, and then maybe using the old Pro as a backup. But if you've upsized your discs over the years and you now have nice new discs in the Drobo Pro that you maybe bought last year, then absolutely fine. Go stick them in the 8D and there'll be no problems at all.
Thank you. What is the difference between the 8D back slot and the Drobo accelerator bay?
Logically, nothing. I mean, they perform the same function. The accelerator bay that you're talking about there is the NSATA slot at the bottom of the 5 and to the 5D3. And also the 5D and the 5N. It's an SSD. It just happens to have a connector that's called mSATA. That's those little golden finger connectors. And then the back slot of the 8D takes a standard 2.5-inch SATA SSD. Functionally, they perform the same thing. The advantage on the 8D version is there's a little bit more choice in terms of capacities, and the prices maybe a little bit better and you can certainly get bigger in terms of capacity, 2.5-inch SSDs, but it is still an SSD. You can't put a hard drive in the back.
Somebody's asking, what is the largest size of SSD that you would recommend?
We touched on this earlier. I would say, again, for the 8D, it's similar. I mean, the 8D packs are probably going to be bigger than the 5D3 pack just because there's more disks, so you might want to go up a notch. And I would say maybe 250 to 500 would be a great spot. But again, really, biggest benefit is by having one, full stop, versus having a bigger one. So in the 5D3, once you get over 120 to 250, you're probably not getting much reward for the extra money. And in the 8D, you may want to, like I said, go up one chunk just because there's more disks in the 8D. But fundamentally, if you can buy it and it physically fits in there, it's going to be fine.
So we're running a bit at the end of our webinar. I know we still have a lot of questions. We're trying to get to them by email, and we'll respond to them afterwards. For those of you who submitted questions again, couldn't cover, we will get back to you shortly. Thank you everyone for joining the live webinar, NAS versus DAS.